In this video, we're going to learn how to draw this real-life problem situation that might arise in a trigonometry course. First, when you have this type of image in your head, to think about what to sketch first. I would definitely do this horizontal line and sketch this mountain and draw these line of sights and angles and stuff like that. And then I will add clouds and little airplane there, which is absolutely unnecessary, but to show some of the techniques, I will just add that in there. So let's begin with horizontal line. So here's the Bezier curve. Click and release and hold Control key. Draw this perfect horizontal line and double click in here after you release Control key. Double click here. That'll generate this line. Click on the Node Mode and see if you did it correctly at the end. So that's the horizontal line. We're going to do the mountain about it here, and this is how I view this mountain in here. First, click the Bezier curve. We'll move it down here later, so I'll sketch a little above this horizontal line. Click and release the horizontal key. Just about that. That's going to be the bottom of the mountain. And after you conclude this horizontal line, you can still move your cursor over this node, and you can continue from there. So this is simply going to be the zigzag line of a straight line. So click and release here, and try to create up and down, and you can still readjust this one later. So try to create many of it up and down there. Double click, and you create this mountain shape, and I will get rid of stroke line. Shift X. First you have to select it, and Shift X and remove it. Determine the color of this mountain, 2, 3, 4, 5, somewhere about region 5 in there. That's the color of this mountain, and you can put it somewhere down here, and we will make this line come out later, but eventually we want to come out to the front top order so that mountain hides beneath it. So select that mountain and look at the node and see if you want to adjust it. I think if you look at the picture, if you remember the picture, you want to put this highest part over here somewhere, and you want to adjust it somewhere there. So when you sketch it, the highest part of the mountain is there, and make sure this is not on its way, something like that. So I adjust it a little bit, and that's the mountain. And you can make it a little bit lighter, maybe somewhere there. And next thing is a frequently used technique. It is very, very useful. So look at it here. So to generate that picture I showed you earlier, so let me hide this one. So you can see it's not just a one, and you can see it's kind of slightly different color. It's on top of each other. So to do that kind of thing, duplicate is always the best one. Click on that picture and duplicate, and then it has additional one on top of it. And we're going to make it a little bit darker. So by clicking on different color for that, maybe it's this one, we'll change that color later. Now, there's two things. You can see the bottom one, this one, and there. Put it back in there, and then we wanted to kind of put it down a little bit like that so that it has slightly multiple colors in there, so it looks more like slightly less boring than just one color shadow image of the mountain. Next thing I'm going to do is a little bit, could be advanced technique, but you have to play around it to understand this absolutely. It's a gradient technique. If you put a little bit of gradient, and it looks better. So let me use a different example to explain this gradient. This is just a solid color I created with let me go ahead and change that to just usual rectangle selection mode. Not just you fill in that card, you can change that to gradually changing color inside there. So if you go to fill color in the fill in stroke box, there's this fill color box, flat color, but there's a linear gradient. So if you click on that linear gradient, it'll change this color to gradually changing. To edit the level of this gradient color, you have to do right click and G for the gradient. Then you will see this node. This is darker one. You can move around to locate it. So it's from bottom to top, which is what we'll do about to the mountain. The other node, if you can hold Control key, it's going to be more like a vertical. So you can see that it can change your gradient level a little bit. So maybe I can put it over there, something like that. But in my opinion, oftentimes this 2 gradient level is just not sufficient. Sometimes you want to add a little bit more color than this one type of gradient color. For that, you can just place your gradient editor cursor somewhere here and double click, and it'll create another node in there. You can add an additional color in there. You can make it a little bit darker there, somewhere there, which is different from the bottom color. Now, if you adjust it and you create a slightly different effect and a color in there. So if I click on that bottom node, you can also change that color to even darker, something like that. Definitely, if you have 3 different nodes, it has a different effect. So that's what I'm about to do to this inside color. Put a little bit of gradient. It looks more like a little bit more realistic than before. So make sure we understand this color. I think this color is this one right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 level is a brighter one. It's going to be getting a little bit darker. I think that's too much. So we're going to use this one, 6th color, and go to the gradient. Now it has a gradient level in there. Right click G. You will have that lever. Put it in the bottom, somewhere in the center. The other one carefully put in the somewhere in the top center in there. Maybe that was a too light in there. Let me go and change that color a little bit to the little bit thicker one. All right, it's a little bit thicker now. Go back to the fill and stroke again, change that to gradient mode, right click and G, and that'll give you the node so that you can control this gradient color, put it up there into this type of a color in there. So, and as you go up, that color is slightly fading away. That'll be nice. So go ahead and double click somewhere there, and you can use a little bit lighter color in there. And it's a subtle difference. As you can see, it's a little bit darker here, but that makes a difference, I think. More color in there, maybe. I like that better. All right. So we create a little bit of a foggy line in between, something like that. So it's better than just one solid color. And another technique I wanted to show, it's a little thing that it's difficult to include in the all this video has a particular theme, is Alt and drag. If you click on Alt and left click, it'll create this line. Anything that is on this path will be selected. So I think it's the best fine selection tool. If you want to select these 2 things, you can maybe click and hold Alt key and double drag your left click and drag, and it'll select these 2 things, and you can now turn that into a group so that when you click it, it all moves around all at the same time. All right, maybe so that's the mountain version I have in there. This is the mountain created. Now let's draw this line of sight and all the other mathematical notation part. So you're here. I'm going to choose this point. Go ahead and select this Bezier curve, the straight line from here to there in the top of the mountain. There. And I realize this snapping is not on. So if you click on and turn on the snapping, and if you go from here to that, it's going to snap onto the top of the mountain there. It's easy. Double click and change the stroke color to black. I like it a little bit thinner, stroke style under fill and stroke box, thinner to the 0.5 level maybe. And then we want to change that to dotted line, things like that. So that's That's the line, and I'm going to do that again somewhere over here, and click on and snapped in that. Double click is automatically dotted line at this point. So that's that. And then I'm going to draw this angle notation and the length notation. That's sometimes necessary to clearly indicate which length is supposed to be that of roughly 5,000 feet level there. So that's what we're going to do first. Thing over here. So that line is going to be simply straight line from here roughly, and click and release a straight line, hold the control key, make it perfectly horizontal, and double click in there. I'm going to change that to the solid line. Yeah, in that fill and stroke, and this is a solid line now. Next thing we want to do is you want to bend it down a little bit. Easiest way to do that is to select one and go to the Nodal Mode. Just go roughly in the half of the part and click and drag a little bit down. It'll create nice, sagged line. And then we will remove the middle part, so the accuracy is not that important. Doing it exactly in the middle, things like that is not very important. However, whenever it's a big enough, and if it has to be exact, the following can be done. You go to the Nodal Mode, you select these two nodes by shift and click. These two nodes are selected. If you add one more node, that's going to be placed right in the middle. So that's nice. And then click and drag down, holding Control key. That'll make everything exactly horizontal. I forgot to reselect only this one. Again, Control and shift it down, and that's going to be roughly there. Now you want to change that node right there into a smooth one, so click on one of those symmetric nodes in there. It makes it smooth. If it is still too sharp in there, click on that handle, hold Control key, make it a little bit bigger, and remove that fill stroke. Then this is roughly that arc for that length. Now we want to remove the middle part, and you can do the cut path in there. Before you do that, you better write that amount so that you know exactly how much you need to cut out. So let's go to that layer, and it's a 5733. So that's what we need to do. So I'm going to write down, here's a 5733 feet now. And if you want to make it a little bit bigger, that's the size. I want to put it just about there. So this is we have to occupy this much of a space in there. I'll definitely go and draw this much of a box, and that's the right size of the box. And we want to cut out that path right there, so about this much. All right, again, this is small, and placing right in the middle in here is not that important, but if you want to do it, this is how you do. You select that. Secondly, you select the arch in there and go to Align and Distribute, which is available under Object menu there. And you can center this one using this one here. You can align that. But the option is the last selected. So the last one I selected is this arch. That's not going to move. All the other thing is going to move toward the center. So if you click on that, you can see the rectangle slightly adjusted. Now these two things are selected, and that's the path, and the other one stroke. So if you go path and cut path, then that'll remove, cut that part away. So if you can deselect it and then delete it, and you can put that right in there. Just supposed to be a perfect size in there, right? These two things are actually separated now. So that's how you do it. And the other part, it's much about this putting this angle. These things are just write those numbers again and put this little circle on top of it. So let's talk about this angle symbol. So I'll definitely zoom in to do that. Control and this roll, what do you call this one? The roller in your mouse, and hold Control. You can zoom in and out using your mouse. It's very convenient. So I'll go to roughly about here. I'm going to draw that circle mark, angle mark in there. just go ahead and click and release. Try to make it as even as possible, like an isosceles triangle you're creating it there. You can always adjust it, doing like that. And then in this node mode, you can just grab this middle one in here and drop the bulge out. These are usually very small, so I wouldn't go anything other than that. So that'll make this angle mark nice. That's good enough to our eyes in that size. So about here, again, control zoom in, control roll in, and this Bezier path over here, double click and go to the nodal mode and make sure it's adjusted so that it's like roughly isosceles triangle, and click on the middle, a little bit out there in selection mode by clicking on S and hit number 1, go to 100% size and shift roll, and your mouse key will move left and right. So that's that. So let's take a look at the angle. There's a 23 degrees. So that's what we're about to do. Let's go in. To make it the same size, you can duplicate this one you had it in there and go to text click, and then you are in edit mode, and it was a 23 degree, and I'm going to do another one, selection in there, control D, and text button, then 31 degree. I'm going to go back and double check, and it was a 31 and 23, it was correct. So these are the two texts in there, about the same size, using duplicate. All right, let me go ahead and add the angle symbol in there. So angle is going to be just this circle with that stroke size, make it a bit smaller. Duplicate, one goes here. I think it's a bit too big, but I'm just going to make it that way. But let's go and select just these two and control group. Now it's all in the same thing. Or you can do Alt and left click and drag. So about that. Alt and left click and drag in here. You can select both of them and control G, you group it, and then you can put this one down here, indicating that's a 31 degree. Either you can put it in here, or if it is too, too thin an angle in there, often you can do this rotation by clicking it 2 times. Sorry about that. It's ungrouped it accidentally. It happens a lot when you accidentally double click and it ungroups it. So click it one more time, rotate it a little bit in here, and one more time again, put it in there, indicating that's 23 degree. Let's put additional dots in there. Here's one technique. You already have a nice circle size in there, and it's in the group. But if you do control click, it'll select that, and you can duplicate and pop that out and change it to blue color and remove the stroke. And that seems a little bit too small. You can make it a little bit bigger, visible in there. So I will put that over here. Sorry about that. I didn't know it is all tied together, so you have to ungroup it. And some things to learn in here. If you do that by Control G, it groups it all together. So Control D, go there and put it in there. So again, it's some people are very picky, and if you want to make this perfectly same horizontal level, you click on that one and click on the second one there, and you can readjust it using this one. Horizontal, perfectly horizontal centered is this button, and the last selected one was on the left. If you do that, it'll adjust the right one, but those kind of things are not necessary often. So you go back to the top and that put it in there. I don't know if that was blue color or something different, so I'm going to change that to red. It's similar to that. So for that one, I'm going to change that to black, but that might be a different color. It was black actually. So that's that. Let's draw these vertical line to indicate height. So for that color, I think the black color stands out better, or the blue. So I'm going to choose Bezier Curve and kind of go to the center of it, already snap to the center, and click and release and hold Control key and double click down there, and we go and change it to the solid line. I think it's already little malfunction. This happened before. Let me go and fix it. Right, for some reason, is when it snagged to that one, is doing weird things. So I sketched it a little bit to the right side and control and move it over there. It's usually to make a perfectly horizontal move. So I did that. So that's going to be the height line, and we'll readjust it, all these orders of this object later. So that's that. And you wanted to write height again if you want to make it in the same size of that, which is not necessary here. And I will just duplicate one of the text and go to the text mode and write height in there and go to the selection mode, and you can turn around. If this is not what you want, you can rotate it around using this clockwise rotation and then put it in there. There will be height using that rotation command. So that's shaping out pretty well. So that's what we have here. Well, as you can see, we did pretty much everything. So we'll go back to our usual thing. Think about the order. I would make this horizontal line stand out all the way to the top. So I'll move it over there. And this black, if you zoom in, the line, this is not usually what you want. So this black line, so I don't know how that's grouped. Let me ungroup it over there to make it all the way to the top. Hit 1 in there to make it 100% size. Just did it there. So that looks great. And also, if you look at it here, these dots, Alt, click, and that'll select it if it's difficult, too small. Move it over here to the top, and I'll select again, move it over to the top. So that's that. So let me go and draw those clouds part. Let me move it slightly down, everything there. And this is a little idea, and I think there's some lesson in there. If you just use the sum of the shape and combining in a union these things, you can create quite a lot of simplified, shapes, and that's sometimes good enough for math instructors. So I'm going to change that to lighter, so you can kind of keep sketching like this in one color and like that. So that will be one type of cloud shape. I don't think it's really necessary to union it because it's in the same color. So I'll just simply group it. So that's one cloud. You can put it in there. You can make it a little bit darker, and that's a good effect. We're doing that. It's too dark. This would be great. So doing another one over here and a little bit thicker in there, something like that. And use your observation. Try to remember or be kind of creative. Go a little bit lower in there. So I'll create this type of thing. I can even duplicate that over there. No one will notice over there. Something like that. So these are clouds you can create further. Control D, and the simple technique, you can flip it back and forth, and they will not know. All right, so that's how you create the clouds. Next thing is about creating that airplane, and it's absolutely not necessary, but there's a good lesson in there, and I don't want to make it another video about that, so I'll include it here. All right, so that thing is like this. Your main body, I decided to make it look like this shape. That's the main body of the airplane. And the key thing here is that you're creating those window shape. And that's the main tools and idea. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so that you can see clearly. The idea is that we wanted to keep this contour shape and create this windows right underneath it. So it's often used technique. You duplicate by Control D and change that to color white because that's going to be the white color inside there. And you go to right now it's white, so let me go and show you the outline. So that's duplicated with the outline. You go to Path, and if you choose this Dynamic Inset, this duplicate one is going to go inside a little bit like that. All right, so move it inside like this. You need to make it really close to the airplane. It's right underneath it. This is the top line of these windows. So you click on that. So there it is. And I want to duplicate it again. So I want to cut out the middle part in there, which what you're left with is just this amount of outer rim. And then you can cut out the spaces between those windows. So that's what we're about to do. So put it back in there and Control D again and do this path and dynamic offset. Make it go inside there. That's the window now. The shaping. I'm going to make it about this size and click on that. Change it to slightly darker color. So there it is. So what we're going to do is that there's this one object underneath it, and the top one, if you take the difference, we're left with that white boundary part. So go to Path, take the difference, and just about set operation A minus B, that A must be in the lower order. If you take the difference, you're left with this one in there. So remove that stroke because it's clear now. All you have to do now is that kind of cut off from here to there. So that's what we're going to do. Again, this is going to be intersection. We want this one with this type of a rectangle to go just about there. As you can see, now I want stroke only and with no fill. So this also has the path with this interior region. This has path with this interior region. If you do the intersection, it'll only take this middle part in there. So that's what we're about to do. Select the bottom one, select the top one. If you do the path intersection, and it'll give you only that window side. And this already looks good. Maybe you can take this as a window part, but we want to divide in the middle and here, following its common technique. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a vertical line as vertical as possible to these to this curve, window curve in there. Double click in there. Try to make about the same size over here, the vertical line there. Okay, and then try to go as vertical as possible, like that. And we're going to realign it so that it looks more even. Double click, make sure it's as vertical as possible, somewhere in there, vertical as possible. I don't know, I'm going to squeeze in one more. That doesn't look good, but that's roughly that. All right, so again, we want to select all this one and nicely redistribute it so that evenly apart. To do that, you hold Alt key and go through all these lines. They're all selected. Under Object, there's Align and Distribute. And if you look at this distribute, it's going to horizontally evenly distribute this one in here. If you click on that, they are far more even than before. So let me go back and actually fix this. Right, now they're distributed. Now I'm going to make this path, stroke a little bit thicker. So I'm going to reselect it and go to Stroke, Fill and Stroke. I'm going to change that to about 2, so even thicker. So maybe 3.5. Let me try it. That looks okay, maybe 4. Sorry about that. 4. That's the thickness. So we're going to remove this much. This is not selected, so that's supposed to be 4. When we remove this part you left with these windows. To do that, we can do the difference, but for that part, these individual path is supposed to be stroke, individual stroke, supposed to be a path, right? You can do only path operation between the path. Right now, this is stroke only, so you're not going to see, not going to be able to take the difference. So go ahead and select all these things using hold Alt key. Go ahead and select all that. Make sure everything is selected. Now you change that stroke to path, right? Now this whole thing is now if you click on that individual thing, if you look at the node, you can see it's now path. These nodes are surrounding this interior region. Now this is a path. To do the path operation, you have to go and select all these paths, and you have to make it into one path by combining path, which is different from grouping. Now it's a one path. Now you want to take the difference. This is in the bottom. This is the top one. If you do the path difference, it's supposed to remove those parts, and you're left with this part, and all this thing is now still a combined path. Now that's how you do this triangle. I mean the window thing, and it's a common technique. I will duplicate this and change it to a little bit darker color, and then make it small, which only selected the body part, and maybe that's a kind of side the wing part, and you can draw this vertical ellipse over there, remove stroke, hold Shift and X, and I will keep that color for now. Just put it over there and rotate it a little bit to make that like a wing in there. So click on that main body and Control C, and over here paste only the style, so it's Control Shift V, or you can find that under this edit menu, paste style. So that's the line a bit lower in there, and you can combine this as a one union, but I don't think it's necessary. So that's the not duplicate, to the Control G, make it into a group, make it small, size in there, put it over there somewhere, what we have in here. So there it goes, an airplane in there. So I think that's pretty similar to what we have over there. So that concludes our video.